Hey guys, welcome to our website. Today we're going to be talking about success in a virtual group. And this website and video was put together by a virtual group made up of Kyra, Sadia, Aaron, and Hunter. All right, let's get started. Okay, so first of all, why is this important? It's important because working in a group is already difficult enough, and working in a virtual group just enhances those difficulties. So it's important to know how to have success. Another reason is that it's rapidly growing. You have more and more opportunities to be in a virtual group. Uh, a big part of this is advances in technology. It's become easier to work virtually, so people are going to it more. Another main reason in our society today is the COVID-19 pandemic. It's a dangerous pandemic, and a lot of people have rules and regulations on when and where they can get together, and some people are just trying to avoid other people altogether. So it makes virtual groups much more appealing to people. Some real world situations where these are occurring more often are in school. Kids are having to go to class online and work in groups online. And then in the business world, at whatever job you might have, more and more people are going to virtual meetings and virtual groups. Okay, so let's talk about some of the advantages of virtual groups. It's important to know these advantages so that you can use them to your advantage. Virtual groups are hard enough, so it's important to use your advantages. Some of these are convenience. As you can see, you can work from the beach, enjoying a nice drink here. Scheduling is an advantage. You can uh, meet late at night, early in the morning in different areas. It doesn't matter where or when you are with virtual groups. Another advantage is advances in technology have made this easier, like we talked about before. This one's pretty cool, diversity in your teams. Right, you can meet with people from all over the world, and there's no travel restrictions on how to get together. You can just meet virtually. And part of that is you get to meet new people that you might not have gotten to meet before. Okay, on the other hand, there's also disadvantages. These are important to know so that you can expect them and overcompensate in these areas to try to make up for these disadvantages. It's more difficult to build team cohesiveness virtually. Similar to that, there's not as much of a social aspect. You don't get to know your teammates as much. Another disadvantage would be organization. It's more difficult to get on the same page when you're not all in the same room. Some people lack motivation when they're behind a virtual screen. They feel like their job isn't as important or they can get away with doing less. Conflict resolution, which is a big part of working in a group, becomes more difficult when you're not face to face. And then finally, if you have different technologies or different computers, it can create some difficulties. Okay, so what are the keys to success? Our keys to success are to have the right team, the right leadership, the right technology, and to have great communication. And we'll see how communication ties into all of these. Okay, so the right team. It's important to have the right people on your team. One thing that can help with this is when you're selecting the team. In our group, before we were even assigned to a group, we filled out a document where we went over our strengths and weaknesses, and then we were able to be put into a group where we could complement each other based on those strengths and weaknesses. Um, Along with that, you got to get to know the people in your group. This is especially important in a virtual group like we talked about. It's difficult to build team cohesiveness, and there's not as much of a social aspect, so you have to get to know each other. You can use an icebreaker activity to get this done. Another thing that can help your people would be a training activity, which we have provided on our website as well. Another important aspect of having the right team is to have the right size team. Our research showed that 10 or less people in a group was ideal. The smaller the group, the better. We also found in our research that any groups over 13 people, they had the worst results, and people did not contribute as much in those groups. Another important part of having the right team is the roles on the team. Like we talked about, you talk about your strengths and weaknesses, and you can use those to assign roles on the team. When you're assigning roles, you want to make sure they're clear objectives and expectations for each role. And then finally, as a part of roles, is to come up with your group rules. And we did that at the very first meeting. Everyone contributed, and we all made group rules that we all agreed on. Okay, the next part of having a success in a virtual group is to have the right leadership. The first part of that is trust. Trust is important between the group and the leader, and between the leader and the group. Something that can help trust the leader is if they have some credibility. So for our group, Kyra kind of took the leadership role, and she had some established credibility because we had had classes with her before, so we knew what kind of person and leader she was. The next part of having the right leadership is the dialogue of the group. The leader must not dictate the dialogue, but facilitate it. Have open dialogue and speak up on opinions is important to having success. And then finally, the leader should establish clarity. They can make sure everyone's on the same page by asking questions, repeating important points, and following up after the meeting. Finally, it's important to have the right technology. You have to have basic equipment like internet, a computer, a smartphone. And then we thought that these three different types of technology were important. Some type of video call. For our group, that was Zoom. And having a Zoom, it's important to have your camera on so you can see each other to help overcome the difficulties of the social aspect. Written communication, for us, that was GroupMe, which allows for texting, pictures, documents. You can like messages and you can @ people. And then finally, file sharing. For us, that was Google Docs, which has apps on the phone and makes it easy to share. And then finally, communication is an important part of all these. The team has to communicate with each other, their strengths and weaknesses, what they do and don't like about group work, their personalities, what rules are important to them, and speaking their opinion. Another thing that can help communicate with each other is having an agenda for before the meeting and minutes after the meeting. The leader must facilitate communication, right, by guiding the dialogue throughout the meeting, and then in between meetings, they can ask questions and make sure everyone's on the same page. And then finally, the technology has to work, otherwise there is no communication. And these are our keys to success in a virtual group.